Let's go back into your, not necessarily back to your childhood, but into your starting point, which was in being a religion scholar, and that's, like Oliver said, is in the subtitle. Tell us, of course it's in the book. I am at a disadvantage not reading German here, so I could not read the whole book like I normally do with interviewees. But
you need a German girlfriend.
Well, too late now.
Girlfriends are never too late.
I think your wife's back there. You better watch
out. Think about this is the German-French cultural combination. So
I thought that was more French.
The French can learn a lot from the French.
You're maybe too French, but what? And we're going to be talking about religion here, and you bring this up. Come on. So that's a strange transition, right? Like if you look at it on the surface, I went from teaching religion to going into international business. Is it strange? Is it natural? How did that come about?
Yeah, I can. First of all, I would like to welcome a true student of mine who came all the way from Mr. Meyer, who came all the way from Germany. And had to reorganize a business trip because he's in the meantime also in charge of a business in Charlotte. And if you have questions about me as a teacher, ask him. Okay.
He's even got the yearbook to prove it. He showed me beforehand.
He does? Oh my God. Yeah, he gave it to me. I did grow up in a very, very religious, Catholic family in Cologne, Germany. Whoever read Heinrich Böll, the famous German author, knows the kind of environment I did grow up in, and it was even worse. Cologne was completely destroyed during the war, mainly by American bombers. And so my parents, my grandparents, we lost everything. And everybody had to start from scratch. And then Konrad Adenauer, who started his career as the mayor of Cologne, had the idea to build, we would call it subdivisions, but very simple townhouse subdivisions in Cologne because there was no place to live. And so in order to have the right to buy a house there, which was fully financed by some credits from the city of Cologne, you had to qualify as follows. You had to be Catholic by religion, and you had to have at least 3 kids.
Wow.
So that creates a very specific
incentive
environment. So everybody is very religious, everybody has many kids, everything is very close, everybody is watching you, so everybody knows each other. And so my father was a teacher, a headmaster of a normal school, and so therefore that creates another special situation. I was always getting into problems when he was a little bit too tough with older students. I basically did get the echo. And so my father had 3 brothers, and they were priests, they were professors of theology, and so he was the only one who was more normal in a way. And so at family reunions, they typically started to talk about religion. And they were very engaged, and they had different opinions and so on. And when we, the younger, I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters, when we wanted to contribute and say something, we were always shut down by saying, well, you're too young, you don't know.
Yeah. Was it religion in the sense of Catholicism only, or were they doing comparative
everything.
Studies?
So, and they were all, let's say, that's a special quality we have, me and my kids as well, we are always right. So, and when you have 4 brothers who want to be right all the time, that's difficult. So after graduating from high school, at that time, it was difficult to study medicine because you had to have a certain grade in order to qualify. And I just made it. So, and I applied for med school. And you, at that time, you finished high school at around Easter time, and then you only could go to college, to university in fall, in October. And so I had plenty of time in between, and I decided to go to France. And I went to Lille. where we had very good friends. I was always very close to France. I think I speak French much better than English. People say that I don't have an accent. So when I was in France, it came into my mind that I should study French. And they call it Romanistics, or French matters, French language, literature, and so on. So, and then immediately I knew when you study this at a German university, you have to do some other things. And I knew that I wanted to study theology, Catholic theology, in order to be in a position to argue with my uncles and my father.
That's really the core of it.
And to be right.
Yes.
And then because I was already at that time not as, what is the word for from in English? Pious, is that a word? Yeah.
There we go. Good translation.
So because I was not, I said, well, you also study philosophy, so then you can even argue better.
Yes.
And that's what I did. And then I, during my studies, I went to France also again for a year to be an assistant teacher again in the north. I applied for Aix-en-Provence. And you had to find reasons why. And I was thinking about what it could be: cultural, painting, arts. And I was sent to Maubeuge in north of France because of the relationship between Cologne and the Département du Nord. And then basically that was the main reason why I studied what I studied.
You spoke at your Legion. I was there at your Legion of Honor ceremony. At AGCO's headquarters, and you spoke about a particularly influential teacher who's mentioned in the book as well.
Manfred Hoffmann.
Yes, who was still around at that time, 2018. Is he still?
I think he's still alive. I invited him for this event, but he couldn't make it because he had some issues. He couldn't walk that well anymore. So this was a teacher. We were a difficult class, so we were always we didn't study so well, we didn't learn well, we were lazy, we were always, this were the 60s, so we were always against everything. Most of the time we were not in school, but in an Italian ice cafe, ice place or something like that. And we did the intellectual approach. So it's not so that we did do nothing. So we had our little espresso, and we're reading Sartre and Camus and things like that.
And cigarette.
Yes, and so and this guy basically allowed us to do that. And he was very innovative. So that means we had a book, an English book. I still remember today where there were little things in it. The zebra in the zoo is suffering from flu, so you didn't have to learn words anymore. Or there's a salesman at the door, and your dirty shirts get quickly clean in this washing machine. Things like that. There's a mouse in the house, but Mama shouts, "Get out!" So those are the things. This is how he brought us close to language. And then my first language was Latin, followed by English, and then French. And he had the idea to go to Paris. And we did a normal class trip to Paris for 10 days. That was very interesting because we were there in May '68, so that was really funny. And they had those famous things like voting is pissing against the wind. Voter, c'est uriner contre le vent, or sous les pavés, il y a la plage. Below the pavement is the beach, things like that. So we immediately became very, very French in a way. And so then he organized an exchange program, and we were for half a year with the whole class in a little French private school. And that basically made us even more
solidified it.
Yeah, more. I fell in love with France. We didn't have much money, so I know Paris most probably until today better than most of the Parisians, because we walked there all the time. Yeah. And when you walk the streets, you basically
different understanding.
Yeah, you get a different understanding than driving going by metro or something like that, or by car.
But we never got to the transition. So where did you go? I think it was 4 years at the high school teaching.
5.
So, 5. Okay. So where was the transition from teaching religion to business? How did you?
I was, let's say, always somewhat financially interested.
I was going to say you must have been entrepreneurial even as a young child, because I
didn't know.
I at least read the title of one, or translated one of the titles of the chapters, and it was the school. It may have translated it incorrectly, but something about modesty, School of Modesty or something.
I basically, because we didn't have a lot of money and very, very limited pocket money, I did receive 5 Deutschmarks per month when I was 15, so that was close to nothing.
This was from your parents?
From my parents.
Yeah.
And so therefore we had to find ways how to make money ourselves, and we did do all kind of things. And very early in life, I started to be interested in horses. And I can tell you why. We had a neighbor who was a big farmer, and he had draft horses. Not really riding horses so much, but we were allowed to basically handle the horses, and we also could ride them once in a while. And so I always had the dream to ride horses. And because of the limited funds, I, so to say, had to work as a groom in order to get lessons for free and things like that. And I became a decent rider, later on even a successful dressage rider and trainer with all the certificates you need. And then basically my parents, specifically my mother, always tried to influence you and manipulate and so on. So then after only a few weeks at university, I decided to move out. And I said to my parents, I need nothing from you. I manage, I will survive on my own. And I started to train horses and students, and then later on I had my own riding school, Dressagebahn, as we say here in the south. And in the first year I already had a Mercedes E-Class with a trailer hitch. 1 year old, so I bought it almost brand new. At that time, you bought it from Stuttgart, from people who worked at Mercedes, and they sold those cars with very, very low mileage. And so I had a horse trailer, I had a dressage horse, so I was very successful. And and we organized big horse shows. I founded a horse club.
This was concurrently with teaching, or this?
That was all, and as a student already, and then later on as a teacher, it was approved, because when you do things like that, you need to have the official approval by government to do that, which I had received. And then I basically had a student who became my most important sponsor, and who was a business owner. And he was always making fun out of me. So when I did do things which I can admit today, but which were not, maybe, I don't know whether the school knew it. The director, Dr. Telöken, I think, knew some of it. So, for example, on Saturdays, most of the horse shows take place Saturdays and Sundays. So, and I wanted to compete. So, but I had to give lessons Saturday morning. So I basically then said, well, next Saturday there will be very good young assistant teacher coming, and this was my wife at that time, my girlfriend, who studied also and became a teacher later on. And I said, well, she will please be kind, and so she basically was my substitute, illegal substitute, so to say. And then I remember the day where I did win a horse show, and the Dr. Telöken, the director, said, come to my office. I read you must be Jesus, because you were in school, you taught classes, and at the same time you win a horse show. So that means, what was the question?
The question was, I mean, and I think we're getting to it, is how did you get into business? It wasn't really,
and then
it was a natural progression based on your horses.
Student and sponsor who always made fun out of me, and he said, well, actually, this is Saturday morning, you should be in school. And then he said, well, actually, isn't it boring? Normally, you have to manage spoiled kids of other people in school, and then you have the same kids in your riding school in the afternoons. Don't you want to do something real? Blah, 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 things like that. And he always made fun out of me. And then one day I said, well, actually, it was Jürgen Thumann, who later was, he just died recently. He became famous because he was the chairman of BDI. Mm-hmm. And then he married Frau Schäffler in Germany, so that means his second wife. And so he basically then said, well, actually, come to my office and we will talk. Because I said, I can't hear it anymore, stop doing this, it's not funny. And so he invited me to come to his office, and I went there with my best corduroys on, and a very, very nice leather jacket and a Lacoste polo. And I thought, you really look good, and you really did dress up. And the first thing he said, well, actually, this is not how you show up for an interview in a serious business. And I said, I didn't know that this is an interview. And he offered me a job, because I had nothing, I knew nothing about business. So my first job, I did do a very intensive trainee program, correspondence studies in business, which I only could handle because I also had a very good ghostwriter. And so, and then I became a correspondent in sales.
Oh, interesting.
Because the only thing I brought with me was some language skills.
Yes. Yeah. So how, I mean, we're going to fast forward quite a bit, but it seems like you had this entrepreneurial bent growing up, right? And particularly when it came to horses and all the teaching and tournaments that you were doing and everything. But yet you kept climbing the corporate ladder, right? Like you kept working for larger companies and kind of working your way up. Why didn't you ever branch off and kind of start your own entrepreneurial business?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I'm doing that right now.
Okay, good.
But when you are first of all, you need to understand business, and you need to learn how to manage and things like that. Yeah. And you need to learn finance and things like that. And so, and I never had basically a plan. I didn't want to become the CEO of a Fortune 300 company. What my approach was always, and I think that's also important for young people, I tried to do what I did always in the best way I could do it.
Right.
So that was one thing. And then second, I was always interested to learn new things, and I still am. Yeah. And right now, we are just founding a company, a huge farm business in Eastern Europe, which is in the area of protein-based food. So we not only produce products like beans and soya beans and peas and so on, but we also convert it into tofu. I think it's today called tofu. We will come up with some better brands.
Impossible beyond something.
And it's a spec. So
yes, I have that on my list here. Yeah. But special purpose acquisition company or corporation? I don't know. Yeah, whatever. But basically founded to acquire other companies, right, and take them public.
We founded it, and it's different from other specs because we knew our targets already before.